Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are watching in the world. My name is Sean Driver, and this is the Red Horde. The pathway to promotion, what is it? Well, something that we do in North America that, from all accounts, is not something that happens in Wales or in England as part of the football process, is determining prior to the season, what do we need to do to get where we want to go? What record or how many points must we achieve to get to win the championship, to get automatic promotion, to make the playoffs, to avoid relegation? Those numbers are known in the North American markets when it comes to sports, at least when it comes to making the playoffs. That's the ultimate goal, making the playoffs, because that gives those teams an opportunity to fight for the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup, the NBA championship, whatever is the main prize. That comes at the end of the playoffs. Unlike in England and Wales, where, yes, there's some cups and those are big prizes, certainly the FA Cup is, but really the ultimate prize, I would suggest, is the regular season win. That's something new to North Americans, but getting to the prize, getting back to the pathway to promotion. We know that in the NHL, since 2005, 2006, when they went to 3 points, and now they've got their division and the wild cards and the conference setup, 95 points is set as the probable standard. There's only been a handful of teams that haven't made it with 95 points being obtained during the course of the season. You've got the 2018-2019 Montreal Canadiens, you've got the Dallas Stars in 2010, 2011, but just a handful of teams. So the standard in the NHL, we know you get to 95, you're probably in. You want to make sure 98's the goal when the puck drops on day one. In the NFL, they've just changed the playoffs, but it usually was the rule that 10 wins was certain, and there had been a couple exceptions to that. There was the Indianapolis Colts in 2020. There's the New England Patriots in 2008. The playoffs, the number of teams has been expanded, and so that's set to be the barometer. You get 10 wins, you make the playoffs. So we'll see how that pans out as far as, as data is collected given the change, but that's the expectation. In Major League Baseball, again, the number of playoff teams has been expanded, but historically it was 93 wins over a 162 game schedule. You hit that 93, largely you got in, exception the 1999 Cincinnati Reds in 96, and there were a couple of teams with 93 that didn't make it prior to the expansion to the wild card. But now that we're there, it's generally believed that it's 93 wins to be certain, 90 wins will normally get you in. The NBA, it's recently changed. It now has play-in games, and it's all over the map, so I'm not going to get into that, but it does lead me to one question that fascinates me about watching the EFL football in England and Wales, and that is, where are the stats? I mean, are we just weird in North America that we're all over the stats? Like in hockey, you've got the regular standard goals and assists, but then you've got Corsi and Fenwick and even strength goals over 60 minutes. In baseball, you have the standard, average, and on-base percentage, but then you've got WAR and wins above replacement and all those advanced analytics. In the NFL, sure, you've got rushing yards and catching yards and throwing yards, but then you've got yards after catch, intended yards in the air, on-target percentage. I don't see any of those statistics that they're coming out, and I think those would be fascinating. You end up finding some striker who's not necessarily scoring a lot of goals, but his on-target percentage is through the roof, then you get an idea as to what that player's about. Those stats are missing, but anyways, I digress. If somebody knows where those are at, I would love to see them. I'm sure there are a bunch of other people who would, but I'm going to jump into League Two. What's the pathway to promotion for Wrexham? Start of the season, I want to know how many wins, how many points, what do we need to do? So that I can keep track over the course of the year. So I went back to 2002, 2003, excluded the 2019-2020 season because that was the COVID impacted season. So I've got 20 seasons of data. There were, and what happens when there's penalties a lot of the time is clubs go into administration or they play improper players, is there's point deductions. I added the points back in. It doesn't affect the players moving up or down, but what it does is it gives me an accurate assessment of how many points would have been there had there have been no point deductions. So those are all put back in, and I've gone through the numbers, and I'm going to probably, yes, I will leave a link to the collected data in a Google Drive so that if anybody wants to have a look at what I collected, if they want to double check it to cross-reference to see if I made any errors, I will do that. I put in all of the information, and then what did I do? I took a min and a max number between the range, as an example, championship, how many teams what's the minimum number that was needed to get promoted, what was the maximum number to get promoted, and then I took the median and the mean. So you've got your average, that's easy. Everybody I think knows what that is. Add them all up, divide it by the number that's there, and bam, that's your average. The median, it's a collection of how many do I have? I have 20 numbers, so what's the one in the middle? Call that the median, and in this situation, the median and the mean were really within one whole number apart. So not a significant range of difference between those two numbers. And what I did is I just rounded up to get to the highest number. Very simple, rudimentary process. But what does it tell us? With certainty, when it comes to winning the championship, how many points do we need? 99. How do I know that? Northampton Town in 2015, 2016. That's the highest that they ever got. When it comes to the lowest number of points that we need to be able to find promotion, what's that look like? 82 points. That was Cheltenham Town in 2020, 2021. What's more interesting, however, is when you start getting into the discussion of the median and the mean. In getting to the championship, 88 was the average, and we're going to keep that number in mind as we go through. The median was 87, so let's keep that 88. Let's conclude. Let's get to 99 points. Yeah. Set a record last year, let's tie the record this year. Unlikely. That 8 points is really where we're going to get, and I think that should be the goal that we shoot for, because when you look at automatic promotion, that 88 comes into play again, because the highest points ever obtained in order to get that final third place automatic promotion in League Two, Hereford United 2007, 2008, they got 88 points. That isn't to say that you can't obtain automatic promotion with less than 88. I mean, Port Vale snuck in 2012, 2013 with just a mere 78 points. That was enough for them. The median and the average, 82 points. Again, half of the time, that's enough for them. But as we go into the season, I'd like to suggest the goal should be 88, because if you get there, you're guaranteed to have automatic promotion, and it's likely, at least slightly greater than the average and the median, that you win the championship. So to me, 88 points, that guarantees us promotion in half the circumstances, gets us the championship. So what does 88 points look like as a record? Well, there are a multitude of combinations of wins and draws that can get you to 88 points. Not going to go through the entire list. I'll just give you 3 examples that are located in the statistics that have come up before, and that is in Hereford United 2007-2008, they obtained 88 points through a record of 26 wins, 10 draws, 10 losses. Other combinations include 25 wins, 13 draws, 8 losses. You want to go down to 6 losses, now it's 24 wins, 16 draws, and 6 losses. So there's multiple combinations, but that's the goal. 88 will get you there, and away we go. Ben Foster, in an interview recently, went over and said, it's our intention to win every game. Of course, they recognize that's impossible, but yes, that should be the goal. But this gives them that standard that you need to sit, that record that we can maintain and go forward. I mean, you go on to a 6-game losing streak at some point during the season, and you're out the window and the championship is gone. Now, how do we get into the playoffs? Well, that's a simple one. 78 points guarantees you a spot, and 66 points is the lowest number to ever get a spot. That was Lincoln City 2005-2006, where they had a record of 15 wins, 21 draws, and 10 losses. That's a boring season. There's a lot of draws there. 73 points is essentially what gets us to a little bit better than 50-50. So how do we get to 73 points? Well, Accrington Stanley did it in 2010-2011 with a record of 18 wins, 19 draws, and 9 losses. But some other combinations that can get you there is 19, 16, and 11, 20 wins, 13 draws, 13 losses, and 21 wins, 10 losses. 21 wins, 10 draws, 15 losses. I will say, it's interesting with the stats, the difference between North America and the US. The two things that you guys do different than us that always throw me off, our home teams are always on the bottom. You guys invert them, and the home team is always on the top. And the second thing is, we list wins, losses, draws. I think it's in the NHL, that's in the NFL, there's no draws in baseball. Wins, losses, draws. But our draws are far less frequent. As far as what happens in EFL, the fact that you guys put your draws in the middle throws me off. So I'm hoping I didn't slip as I went through those numbers, but I think I've got there. Now, the topic we don't want to talk about, and that is avoiding relegation. 50 points. is the most that was ever needed to stay out of the bottom two. In 2012, 2013, Barnet was relegated with 51 points. Dagenham and Redbridge also advanced on 51 on a second tiebreaker, that being who scored the most goals. But 50 points is the safe number, and how do you get to that? That's a record of 13 wins, 12 draws, 21 losses. Take that for what you will. We know what we need now. Shoot for those 88 points. That's really the record, 88, 88, 88. It's an easy number to shoot for. That'll get us automatic promotion. That's the charge. That's what the goal is. Sure, championship would be nice, and 88 gives us a chance for that. And hey, if it gets to more than that, and we're talking at the end of it, and we're setting another record, all the more power to us. But going in, it's nice to know 88. Now, I just want to talk about something else that I find different that's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, and that is the tiebreaker that exists. And I'm going to go to Rule 9.1 of the EFL regulations for when there's a tiebreaker between two or more clubs. And it basically breaks out as this. End of the season, we're going to look at 1, points first. Who's at the top? Who got the most points out of the two teams that are tied? 2, we're going to go to goal difference. That is goals scored for and goals against. Take that difference. Who has the highest number? So then we go to goals scored. If they're still tied, a little slight benefit to the more offensive team. Sure, that's fine. But here's where I get thrown off is, why is the fourth factor not number 2? And that is, why isn't points in games against the tied clubs more important? I can only imagine Wrexham, and let's call it Knott, sitting in the 3-4 positions at the end of the year, tied on points, and one team, let's say Notts County, has the advantage on goal difference, goals scored, so they're likely ahead. But let's say that they lost both games to Wrexham. That is a funny request to sit there and say, on the day, both days, when Wrexham played Notts County, they beat them 2 times, but even though they're tied at the end of the year, we're going to say that it's goals scored that ends up being the tiebreaker. Someone's going to have to explain to me why that's accepted, because it makes no sense to me. You have 2 teams that played 46 games. They're tied on points, and you're looking for the tiebreaker, and instead you prefer a mathematical calculation of how many goals they scored, how many goals did they allow, instead of the simple one. On the day when that tied team played that tied team, who won? It should be the competition between the 2 teams that matters. Look, we've got 3 days before the preseason starts. I'm going to be on a live. I'm hoping that other people join us. I really, really like the idea of a whole bunch of people all around the world watching the game and just sitting around and chatting. Unfortunately, that means you're probably going to hear my sultry tones, maybe. I'm not a sports broadcaster. I'm not Mark Griffiths. This is going to be new to me as I go through and try to watch. There's going to be people watching at different times. But I like the idea of community connecting in any way we can. So join me on the lives. Hit the subscribe button. I'm still surprised that there's as many viewing hours as I have. The subscriptions are a little bit slow on the uptake, which sure, that's fine. I just started. I'm excited to have like one of you every day that ends up joining, but it's crazy to me that I'm getting as many viewing hours as I'm getting. So hit the subscribe button. That helps me out a lot. Join the live. Join in on the chat. Let me know that you're there and you're eavesdropping, you're listening. Ask me questions. Heck, there might be a couple of you who even want to do it with me. The platform that I've created was set up so that anybody who want to do videos, you can. You want to write articles? Cool, let's do that. You want to create the graphics? Let's do that. So if you have something you want to do to end up trying to unite the Wrexham community, let me know. Let's get into it. Send me a DM on Twitter. Follow me there. Let's get into it. Thank you for that one. I got one more out that we're going to come out with at about the same time. And then I'm going to try and prep for a 90-minute plus live and see how that all goes. Details will come. Follow along on Instagram and Twitter, and we'll get it all out there. Thanks, everybody. And yeah, this was the Red Horde.